Hi, my name is Nathan Urben and I'm a horticulturist at the Missouri Botanical Garden. I'm in my yard today and I'll be talking to you a little bit about spring blooming bulbs. So spring blooming bulbs are bulbs that you plant in the fall and then you have that beautiful display in the following spring. There are so many different types now to choose from between different species and different flower colors and bloom times. As far as bloom times go, you can have bulbs that bloom as early as late January and some that bloom as late May. Um, and so this is a really great time of the year to look around your garden and identify some areas that are lacking in color and things you want to kind of improve. Also, as you're going for walks around your neighborhood right now, take a look in your neighbors' yards and see if they have any flower bulbs or colors that you particularly like and make note of them. And then come late summer, fall, uh, take a look through garden catalogs, bulb catalogs, and see if there's any of these particular varieties or colors you're looking for. Some good companies to look at are Color Blends, John Sheepers, and Brent and Becky's are good places to look. They have really good quality in their bulbs, and in addition to having fair prices and good selection. So let's go ahead. I'm going to walk you around my yard and I'll show you a few bulb selections that I really like. So this is the first bulb I'm going to talk about today. This is Grape Hyacinth, otherwise known as Muscari. It comes in blue, pale blue, white. There's also a pale pink selection now on the market. It's a nice shoes and socks plant, as we say. It grows nicely at the base of taller bulbs like hybrid tulips and daffodils. One nice thing about it is that the foliage comes up in both the spring and the fall. And why is that good? Well, when you're planting bulbs in the fall, it's nice to know where the existing bulbs are so you're not slicing into a bulb you want to keep. So that's one of the nice things about it. It's a nice plant too because it pairs so well with just about any kind of color scheme you can think of. Whites, pinks, oranges, just about everything. It likes full sun, moist, well-drained soils, and it can take a little bit of filtered sunlight too in partly shaded areas. Then the next bulb group I want to mention are daffodils. And daffodils are a bulb that I think everyone should have in their home garden. They're just so easy. They're not picky as long as you give them full sun, well-drained soils. Deer, rabbits, voles, leave them alone because the foliage and the bulb itself is poisonous to those types of animals. One type of bulb, or one type of daffodil I'm going to talk about is a white one here called Stainless. It's a nice mid-season daffodil. Across from it here I have another one called Thalia, which is more of a mid-late season daffodil. Both Thalia and Stainless look really great with blue flowers. As you can see here, I have Virginia bluebells kind of planted in amongst and behind it. And over here I have celandine poppies, which is another spring ephemeral that blooms about the same time with it. Daffodils are just so nice because they just have so many different flower colors. There's whites, there's yellow, there's bicolors, there's pinks, which I'll show you another one of those in a minute. Daffodils, you typically plant them 6 to 8 inches deep in the soil, but follow the company's directions as far as planting depth. Daffodils are typically go dormant in the summer like most bulbs, and they want to have the nice dry period in there too. Do not tie or cut back the foliage on any bulb, especially daffodils, until after the foliage has turned yellow and brown. Because if you do, you're just removing the photosynthesizing component of the plant, which are the foliage, and that's going to reduce the amount of bloom and the vigor of the plant in the following spring. So now I'm going to start walking and show you a pink variety that I'm fond of. This one is called Pink Charm. It's kind of a coral pink rim to the cup on this daffodil. It's a nice strong grower. Typically pinks do better in a little bit of filtered sunlight here. I have them kind of growing underneath a magnolia tree, so eventually when the magnolia leaves out, it'll give this area a little more shade. So that's why the color might have faded a little bit. The sun's a little intense here right now. But again, another great selection of daffodil. And now we're going to come into my side garden here and look at a couple bulbs growing in my stumpery garden. The first one I'm going to mention is snake's head fritillary, otherwise known as Fritillary meleagris. This is kind of a nice, unknown, underutilized bulb that more people need to use in their gardens. Just kind of purple checkered flowers that kind of droop down. The foliage is sort of grassy. This plant grows in moist, well-drained soils, full sun to parched shade. This garden faces east, so this area gets morning sun and afternoon shade, which is great for this plant. This plant looks really good against light-colored plants or light backgrounds. I like it against this foliage of this variegated hosta, as you can see here. Really nice. Great plant. The next bulb I'm going to mention is Siberian squill with the blue flowers here, otherwise known as Scilla siberica. There are other squills on the market, other species that have different flower colors, different flower shapes. This is a nice hardy one to our climate. Scilla michikawana is another great species with pale blue flowers, almost white from a distance. It's another great one I would recommend. Again, it's kind of like a nice shoes and socks plant, kind of like the muscari or the grape hyacinth I mentioned earlier. Pairs really well with yellow daffodils. I had rapture daffodils, which is a nice cyclaminius type with yellow reflex petals. It looks really nice with it. Another great bulb for naturalizing too. And now I'm going to come into my front yard and look at a relatively new garden I installed this last year. I call this my iris meadow, but right now it kind of looks more like the tulip meadow because I have so many tulips planted in here. So tulips are excellent spring display. It's one of the first things people think of when they think of bulbs. One thing you need to know about tulips is that they're more likely to be just annuals for us. They come up, they flower, they do their thing, and then they're sort of done. They may come back for another year or two if they like where they're at, but typically they only last about a year. Darwin tulips are an exception. Those have more perennial tendencies. They may come back for 2 to 3 years, or maybe more if they're happily sited. So this mix has 7 different varieties that I chose. Mainly pinks, burgundy, white, and kind of yellow rose bicolors that bloom kind of mid-late spring. So, like I said with the daffodils, keep the foliage up for now if you want to see if they'll come back, and don't cut it back until it starts to yellow and brown. Again, 6 to 8 inches deep on these. Moist, well-drained soils. Drainage is important with tulips, especially if you want them to come back for year after year. Plant a bunch of them so that you have plenty to cut and bring inside to put in a vase so you can enjoy the flowers indoors as well. And now I'm going to talk a little bit about naturalizing bulbs in your home lawn. So this is my little bulb meadow I created. I have dozens of different species of different types of bulbs in here, and they all start at different times. So I have like reticulated iris and crocus blooming in late February into March, and then I have Chinodoxa or Glory of the Snow in here, which takes up the slack when those finish, and then I have some little minnow daffodils in here that are blooming still. And then I have some little species tulips that are kind of dotted throughout. So what I did last fall was I just threw hundreds of different bulbs on the top of the lawn, and I just planted them right into the turf where they fell. And like I said previously, I don't mow this area until all the foliage from all the bulbs is turning yellow and browning, because I don't want to take away any energy from next year's bloom. So that's a nice little tip that you can do, and maybe you can do a bulb meadow in your own yard, and as visitors or people that are walking by your yard see it, they'll be gawking and at all the beauty that you've just created for them and for yourself and your family. Well, that's our lesson for today. I hope you learned a lot and got some ideas that you can take home and use in your own garden. If you have more questions or want to know more about the subjects I talked about today, try going on to the Kemper Center for Home Gardening's website and look up, there's all sorts of plant fact sheets and visual guides that can help you in your gardening adventures. Happy gardening!